at that Melissa McCarthy woman. They're angry that she's losing weight. Do you understand this?
I love it.
They're angry that she's choosing to become healthy. So they're saying this is in direct contrast to who she was before, who we loved, is this fucking cartoonish fat lady.
Yeah.
And this cartoonish fat lady who we want to pretend is healthy.
Yeah.
You know, there's a fucking slew of people out there that have blogs out there talking about different things that are healthy about being fat. And I went down a rabbit hole one night because some woman was writing, she was this obese woman, and I was really sad when I was looking at her photos. And, you know, people like to highlight things that people say about them on social media, and, you know, like, you know, all these people are harassing her for being fat.
It's
but
hard.
she's putting out a blog, right?
Yeah.
When you're putting yourself out there and you're putting a blog, you're just going to, you put some honey out there, you're going to attract a certain amount of bugs. There's just no way around that, right? But she was talking about different aspects of being overweight that are healthy, and this one weird phenomenon where healthy people that catch a disease sometimes don't do as well as fat people that have the same disease.
In the old days, they said you should have some weight on you in case you get a disease and you can fight it better. That was always the case.
What is that? How could that be true?
I guess because maybe, and I'm just, this is bro science, but from what I remember reading, your fat can actually absorb or store more. I don't know, or you have reserves when you're not eating and stuff. You know, your body will use the fatty acids for energy.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah. So your body gets into a state of burning fat rather than burning food.
Yeah.
And many times when people are sick, that's a huge issue. Is coming up with some form of energy.
My Italian relatives, you know, the Sicilian side back in the day, I remember if somebody was too skinny, they would say, you know, be careful. If you get sick, you know, you'll die.
Weird? Well, it totally makes sense. But that doesn't mean it's healthy to be fat.
Right.
It just means it's like it's a reserve policy in case you get a fucking catastrophic disease.
Yeah.
But you're also more likely to get that catastrophic disease if you're fat.
Yeah.
So it's such a catch-22.
This book by Gary Taub, I just love, called Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It. And he traces the genealogy of the obesity epidemic. And he goes all the way back to the 30s in New York City. And he looks at how ineffective all these obesity clinics and even the science of obesity has been. It's been so difficult because a lot of times they treated it like it was a psychological disease, like you eat too much. So you'd go to a psychiatrist, or they would put you on these very restrictive diets, 1,200 calories a day, and you would lose weight, but at the end of the day you descend. But
also your body gets into this state of panic where it tries to store energy really quickly because it's worried that you're in a famine state.
Right. So what he traces, and he looks at the Native Americans that had to sort of get on government rations when their land was taken, and they all blew up like balloons because they were given white flour. And the thesis of the book is essentially that when you eat simple carbohydrates and a lot of carbohydrates, especially things like white flour and sugar, your body produces a lot of insulin, and for a whole bunch of metabolic reasons, it's insulin that causes you to retain fat molecules and need more sugar for energy, and he does a really great job in the book of explaining it. But that sort of, you know, when you look at it that way, and when you look at the fact that it's just a question of changing what you put into your body, you know, you will then eventually, like this keto diet, for example, it's a really good way to lose weight and not have to restrict your calories. It just is. Now, I don't know if it's for everybody.
I don't think there is a single diet that's for everybody.
I don't either.
People's bodies are different. Like, obviously, people have different allergies to foods, like, or allergies to all sorts of things. Like, that's a great indication that there's so much biological diversity. So many people have genetics that have come from all sorts of different parts of the world, all sorts of different environments that we evolved from. There's no one single diet
with
for
obesity is fairly recent, only because when people started eating, you know, that much sugar and bread. But you know,
I think that's universal.
It is.
All right, like there's nothing wrong with eating a certain amount of carbs and breads and pastas, but it is universal that massive amounts of sugar are bad for you.
I don't think there's any question anymore scientifically.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's hard for very fat people, obese people who have trouble with this, who may have gotten caught into that pattern as kids, or they have and it's very true that some people genetically do put weight on. They don't process carbs the way other people do. Like I can eat carbs all day and stay very thin. Some people just can't do that. But for a long time,
you're very active though.
I'm very active. But for a long time, what I'm saying is that there's always been and still is a stigma, which is you're fat, which means you are of weak character or you have a faulty character. You're bad. And that's why they take so much shit. Whereas Gary Taubman in his book said a lot of it was just the fact that people didn't know how the body worked.
Right.
And a lot of this information came out in Germany before the war. There were these Austrian and German scientists that were really closing in on what insulin does to make you gain weight. But guess what? When the war was over, no American scientists were going to use German data.
Right.
It was kind of like, no, we'll come up with our own data.
Well, we used their rocket data.
We did use their rocket data.
We fucking scooped up all their Operation Paperclip. We scooped up all their fucking rocket scientists and made them Americans.
Yeah.